Good afternoon. Welcome to our first professional development workshop of the 2021-22 school year. And this workshop is sponsored by the Center for Music Education at Georgia College and is available for anyone who's really interested in music education topics. And we're excited to have several people with us today to explore choral pedagogy with Mr. Williams, Mr. Jeremy Williams, who is the choral director at Veterans High School and has a bachelor's degree from Columbus State University Schwab School of Music, and recently finished his master's degree in our very own Georgia College Masters of Music Ed program. And so we're excited to have him as one of ours. And if you're here, you probably are aware that Jeremy's choirs are consistently amazing. They're amazing not only in that they receive superior ratings and win grand champion awards at, competitions and invitationals, but they're just amazing in the quality of sound and the consistency of sound that he gets with his choirs. And so we're excited, and we're going to turn this over to Jeremy so that he can teach us how to do the same with our choirs.
I don't know about all that, but I'll at least do my very best. For those of y'all that are just getting in, if you wouldn't mind in the chat box, if you would please put your name, your current position, if you're teaching, if you're a student, it's totally fine, any years of experience that you have, and then what your ultimate dream job would be. And just shoot for the moon on that. It's totally fine. That way I can get to know you a little bit, and we can kind of get to know each other since we're, spread out across the state. I'm very grateful to Georgia College and to Dr. Holmes-Davis for having me. In the description of this class, she was kind enough to write under their master teacher, Jeremy Williams. I don't know about all that. I don't believe that I'm a master of much of anything. But I've been fortunate enough to have people who invested in me and mentored me. And I've been given, Dr. Davis said what I said. Well, you're very kind. But I've picked up a few things along the way, and hopefully they will be helpful. But we're going to jump in with some of the stuff that I think maybe could be helpful, or at least it was helpful for me. First things first. Music is a wide world, no matter what your discipline is. And I have picked up some amazing things from amazing people. So I want to give them some credit right off the top. First of all, my dad and my stepmom, Dr. Brian Williams and Dr. Jana Williams. Dr. Brian Williams in particular, who just a couple years ago retired after 40 years in public school, between junior high, middle school, and high school. He retired from Lassiter High School, and then Dr. Jana Williams, who retired from Walton High School, two of the great programs in the state of Georgia. They are invaluable resources, and I think they're pretty decent people too, which is always fun. Next, what really made me the teacher I am today is attending UGA's Summer Choral Conducting Institute with Dr. Dan Barra, and who has now incorporated that into a seminar, a week-long seminar at Georgia State with his wife, Dr. Deanna Joseph. And I went to the UGA seminar 2 summers in a row for a week each, and it changed everything about how I teach. I pulled a lot of what we're going to talk about today from what I got in that seminar environment, and it really changed my perspective on teaching. So if you ever have a chance to do something in the summer with them, I could not recommend it highly enough. Stanley Roberts, Dr. Stanley Roberts at Mercer, has been a wonderful friend, colleague, and mentor. Some of the things we're going to talk about I've picked up from singing under him with the Choral Society of Middle Georgia. Joy Dumas, who is the choral director at Perry High School. She was at Warner Robins High for several years. Got some great stuff from her. And then my wife, Leah Williams, who's the band director at Bon Air Middle. I've gotten some amazing wisdom from her. Tom Brown, who was the band director that opened Veterans High, he retired a few years ago, was an incredible mentor. So you're going to hear a lot of things that I've picked up from them. First things first, in the world of music, folks can sometimes be very competitive to an extent, but also they hold on to the wisdom they have very in a selfish way sometimes. And Dan Barra told me something that I'll never forget. He said, "There is more than enough music to go around. There's more than enough to go around. So don't hold on to any knowledge that you have. Share it and let others learn from you, and don't just try to keep it to yourself and make them learn it the hard way, because Lord knows the world is hard enough. There's no need to make the job any harder than it absolutely has to be." So before I get into the pedagogy stuff, there are a few things that I kind of call duh sort of things that are they're not directly related to rehearsal, but they absolutely affect choir rehearsals, or in an elementary classroom or in a music appreciation classroom. It affects any classroom teacher. And they're things that you probably got in methods classes, but they're definitely worth revisiting. The first one is to be professional. And I know, again, that's kind of a duh sort of thing, but it makes a huge difference. Be professional with your colleagues, with the students. As a young teacher, getting into a middle school class, that was the most liked I had ever been in terms of a school environment. And I was so young, I was, relatively immature, and I just ate it up. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it completely undermined everything I was trying to do in the classroom. We sacrifice respect for popularity sometimes, and respect is always better. It's harder, but it's always better. Um, we hear about principals or administrators or counselors or whoever that just they don't understand what we're trying to do. They don't understand how we don't understand how they could put, kid A in the wrong class, or all this kind of stuff. Just remember, 99% of the time, no one is out to get you. No one is trying to kill your program. They're just doing the best that they know how to do. And we're expecting them to speak our language. They think, like most courses, you go from, for instance, ninth grade literature to 10th grade literature to 11th grade. So why wouldn't you go from chorus one to chorus two to chorus three, even though we think, no, this kid needs to be in the intermediate class. They're not ready to advance up. To a counselor's mind, that really doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's not their fault. They deal with 90% of logical progression from level to level. And so when stuff like that happens, I've found that it's not that anyone's out to get you. They just don't know how to speak your language. So um, a lot of conflict can be taken care of by just having a conversation with them and learning to speak their language and meeting them in the middle. Along with that, don't go looking for fights. Sometimes in music education programs, at least the one that I came from at Columbus, we were taught about advocacy and how music is a dying art in the public schools, and we have to fight, fight, fight to preserve our programs. And in some places, that very well may be true. I don't want to limit or discount anyone's experience, but I've found that more often than not, most people are just they're too worried about their own stuff to worry about us. They're not trying to completely destroy what we're trying to do. And so a lot of conflicts can be solved by just having a conversation and assuming the best of someone, and assuming that they don't know how to read our minds, and so they're not sure exactly what it is we're after, just like we aren't sure what they're after. Conversations can go a very long way. And to go along with that, if you have a leadership team at your school, whether they call it in Houston County, they usually call them better seeking jobs, better seeking teams. That some schools call it the leadership team. It could be team forward, anything like that. Department chair meetings, team leaders, whatever. Anytime you have a chance to sit in on one of those meetings, I could not recommend it highly enough. Because then what that does is it helps you to zoom out. We just want to worry about our classroom, our kids, just do our thing. But when we get involved in stuff like that and we see the bigger picture, we realize how we can help the entirety of the school, which ends up helping us. That may make it sound like I've drunk the administrative Kool-Aid. I have not. I have no intention of ever being an administrator. Just learn to work smart, not hard. And a lot of that hard work is fighting battles that don't necessarily have to be fought. Um, so with that same idea, plug in, go to stuff, go to athletic events, go to anything and everything that you can realistically go to see your students outside of what they normally do. I know in my little bubble of the world, anytime I've gone to a kid's athletic event and they notice that I'm there, they always mention it to me. Never once have they just never acknowledged that fact. And go to things that your colleagues do too. Because think about this. How can we expect people to come to our concerts and to support our programs if we don't do the same for them? In what way is that fair or reasonable? And that one thing about music is we sometimes have this idea like it kind of like the classical musicians of the early 20th century. Well, we don't need to worry about the audience. We are so highfalutin that they should just come to us. And the audiences dip out. Our kids will do the same. And our building administrators and colleagues will do the same. Go and support those people. And they're much more likely to support you. Last thing is, as far as non-rehearsal stuff, is something I got from my principal, Dr. Amy Barber, who is one of, and I forgot to thank her earlier, give credit to her. I believe she is the best administrator on the planet, bar none. And anybody who disagrees can fight me. But one thing that she says is bloom where you're planted. And that's why I was asking about the ultimate dream job, because I'm fortunate enough, I'm in my dream job. I wanted to be a high school choral director. And I thought this is the job I would get in year 20, 25, but I got it in year 2. And I wasn't ready at all, but I was given an opportunity. And it's so important wherever you are. If it's not the job that you wanted whatsoever, or if it's your dream job, it doesn't matter. Work as though it was. Put everything you have into building that program and making it the very best it can be. And the opportunities will come. The opportunities will come if you are really faithful to that process. Those of y'all that are just joining, if you look at the chat, Dr. Holmes-Davis did mention it, but if you would, just tell us your name, your current position, any years of experience, and what your ultimate dream job would be. So let's see. Let's dive into a few things as far as choir stuff. I have a question for everybody, in addition to the whole ultimate dream job. My question is, think about something that makes you absolutely nerd out. Like just like somebody hearing you talk about this thing just makes you go, nerd, you are way too passionate about this thing. What's something that just makes your blood run, that you love talking about? You don't get tired of it. Have that in the back of your head, because we're going to get to that in just a moment. What is our job? What is our job as teachers, as choral directors, as music teachers, as teachers in general? Yes, we want to produce great sounding ensembles, musically literate and intelligent students. We want to help them achieve, right? I mean, that's pretty standard. That's pretty, that's not a hard reach. But also part of what we are tasked to do, in my opinion, is to show them what a healthy adult looks like. I'm gonna say that part again. Yes, our job is to have high achieving students, but it's also to show them what a healthy adult looks like. Physical, I obviously have some work to do on that particular front. Mental and emotional, however, especially as those things are in the limelight nowadays, we have a responsibility to show them what a mentally and emotionally healthy person looks like because they may not have that at home. And so, with that, we have to do a few things ourselves to be the best we can be for them. One thing, sleep. You survived getting a music degree. All right, that shows some real tenacity and some commitment. I'm sure there were some all-nighters thrown in there, but sleep cannot be overstated. Um, I ever since I started teaching, I've been going to bed between 8:30 and 9 o'clock every school night. If I see 10 o'clock, it's not going to be a great day for me the next day. Now, part of that is I also get up relatively early. I mean, my feet hit the floor at 5, but that's because I need to be awake for at least a couple of hours before I have to be in front of kids. That's just me. That's how my voice works. If I'm not awake for 2 hours, it doesn't matter. All I can do all the warm ups in the world. It's going to be garbage until I hit the 2 hour mark. That's just me and my instrument. Yours might be different. I don't have kids at home. That makes a big difference. I'm not pretending that this is for everybody, but you have to prioritize your sleep so that your body and your brain can work at its best. Hydration and nutrition. They've got these fancy water bottles now that have various markings, so you can like I have to fill this up and drink it twice a day to get my recommended amount of water. I'm not always great at it, but sometimes it works. Um, Here's one that may not be as popular, but it works for me. And all the stuff I'm gonna say is just stuff that has worked for me. What it I think it's really important to have some passion or discipline or a hobby or some interest outside of music and outside of teaching. Something that where you can have the crummiest day in the classroom, like everything's just gone to crap, but you have something that's unaffected by that, something you can dive into that kind of recharges your battery. For me, it's video games. That's mine. If you know one of yours, if you know what something that is outside of music that kind of helps you readjust, we'd love to hear about it. Put it in the chat box. Um, it's really important to have something that is not related to your job, because when the job goes poorly, as it sometimes does, then if that's your whole world, then your whole world is going poorly, and that's a crummy place to be. That doesn't necessarily feel good. Um, and so, like I asked earlier, what is something that makes you completely nerd out? Um, if you'd like to unmute, if you'd like to turn on your video, you're welcome to. I'd like to hear what your thing is. It can be music, it can be choir, but I want to hear about what your passion is, like the thing that drives you more than anything else. Please feel free to chime in. I'd like to hear it from your voice rather than read it, if that's possible with what y'all have going. Let's hear it. What do we got?
I'll start it off. I'm Tiffany. What really drives me is helping others, knowing that certain things that I've overcome in life and being what I needed to others, being what I needed for others. That's really what drives me to do what I do.
Mm, that's cool. Thank you, Tiffany. Others, what's the passion you've got? Mullinax, I see you've got video games and gardening. Um, Gardening, having something that's physical that you can like actually put physical effort into and then see a result. That's really powerful, especially after a long day when kids aren't doing what they should. What are some others? What's a passion?
I'll jump in. Um, Probably my biggest passion is connecting with people.
Mm,
I'm a daughter of a psychologist and a nurse, and I never went the health sciences route, but I think it's really important to connect with students, to connect with colleagues, and to make relationships that are going to last. So having that bond with people that goes beyond when they're in your class.
Absolutely. That's a really excellent one. Thank you, Dr. Flory. Any others that would like to chime in about their passion? It can have something to do with music. It can have nothing to do with music or teaching. Totally fine, whatever the case may be. Going once, going twice, going thrice. Cool. Let's see. Shantoria says, loving aviation. Oh, that's cool. I know nothing about it at all, but that's awesome. I hope that you're able to really kind of dive into that when you're outside of the classroom, or even if you're when you're in it. I ask that because part of being our best self is recognizing what our passion is. Part of being our best self is recognizing what our passion is. And even if it's not choir, that's okay. But it's being passionate and talking about those kinds of things. I will talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe because I absolutely love everything Marvel. That's something that I nerd out over. I'll talk about the video games that I'm playing if they are school appropriate. If they're not, then I just leave them to the side and they don't get discussed. But it's really important to be open and transparent with who you are and what you love and why you love it. My biggest passion is not choir. My biggest passion, similar to Dr. Flory, is connecting with people and seeing them be passionate. When students talk about, like, I've got a couple of soccer players in my top ensemble right now, and to watch them come alive when they talk about soccer, or when one of the real top people in the drama department talks about this show that she just saw, and to watch their eyes sparkle, that's what I absolutely live for. And the reason I bring it up is because I chose choir as a means to that end, to help them discover one of my great passions so we can become passionate about it together. When we are passionate about what we're doing in the classroom, it gives them the permission to join us. We unlock and open that door in our enthusiasm and our nerdiness about it, and we invite them to follow us and dive into that. The biggest thing that's helped me in a rehearsal or in this program to get students on board is to be unapologetically passionate about choral music. That's number one. To love it so obviously that they can't help but at least be curious about why. And that's all we need. Now, on the flip side of that, we music people are deep feeling people, and it's possible to go too far in that and bringing your personal life into the classroom and all of that, especially at the high school level where some of those deeper conversations can happen. Again, like I said at the very beginning, be professional. Always, 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 always. Now, from there, let's get into some nuts and bolts. Everybody, if you would, you don't have to put it in the chat. You can if you want to. If you want to just open up a Word document, if you want to jot something down on a piece of paper, that's fine. I need you to think about one thing, please. And this is most especially true for those that are teaching. If you haven't started teaching yet, then just kind of think ahead to what you're going to be teaching. I'd like to know, just for my own sake, what is the thing in rehearsal you wish you were better at or knew more about? In the day-to-day work of the teaching of the kids, what's the thing you wish you knew more about, that you were better at? One might call it a rehearsal vexation. So please make a note of that. And when we get to the end of this, we're going to go through and address those as best we can. Can't promise any answers, but we can at least address it and have some discussion about some possibilities of how to help you with that. Because everybody's got something. Lord knows I have many things I'm garbage at, but trying to get better at least. So take a couple moments and do that for us if you would. Oh, I have some more. Accompaniment. Oh, you're speaking my language. Yeah. Garbage piano player right here. This guy. Garbage. Dad tried to tell me. I didn't listen. All right. Nuts and bolts. Notes and rhythms. Rehearsal technique stuff. Here, we're going to start out kind of zoomed out and then zoom into some specific things. These are things that are applicable no matter really what level you're at. If you are trying to get a group of people to sing together, these are some things that are very, very important in my opinion. First one is be energized. I am not an extrovert. I am an introvert at heart. Having a lot of people and being social and all of that is draining to me. That is not energizing. But I have to channel whatever bit of extrovert I have in order to do this job. That's why when I go home at the end of the day, all I want to do is stare at a wall because I've just been on the entire day. And that's exhausting. For some people, it's energizing. Congrats if you're one of those people. You won the lottery to an extent. But being energized and being on is incredibly important. There are people who have more subdued personalities that are successful music educators. In my experience, that's a very difficult mountain to climb. If you choose that mountain, cool. I would recommend try and channel a little bit of theater and pretend in a way to be that energized person and see if the kid's response doesn't actually fuel it. When kids are coming in, as they're entering the room, I find that playing recordings, good recordings, is a good way to help subconsciously model and teach them what kind of sound we're after. For instance, if you're going to work on a fast-paced, up-tempo, grand, big piece, maybe as the kids are coming in, play a recording of the Shaw Parker, Hark I Hear the Harps Eternal. That way, we're not only kind of subtly prepping their brains for what we're going to be doing, but we're also teaching them what good sound is. And a lot of times they can't physically do it yet, or they don't really have it in their head what they should sound like. Those kinds of things, playing those recordings can really help. Like I said before, be unapologetically passionate and nerd out over choir, and encourage them to find the things that make them nerd out. It doesn't have to be this. I tell students all the time, it doesn't matter what it is that you nerd out over. Find whatever it is and go pursue that. If you are a garbage piano player like I am, and 2 parts at a time is a struggle, you will miss notes. When you're teaching theory or appreciation and you're learning about stuff that you've never ever experienced, but you have to teach the kids, you will get some stuff wrong. People, do not gloss over it when that happens. Don't just play it off like you were actually right or pretend like it didn't happen. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but at least acknowledge it. Kids, they tell us in methods classes, kids are very perceptive. They know when we're trying to pull the wool over their eyes. They know when a teacher messes up and is trying to kind of backtrack and play it off like they didn't. Don't be one of those people. If you miss a note, if your voice cracks, whatever, laugh with it. Well, yep, that was me. I messed that one up big time. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. We'll do it for my sake. And then go again. For one, it adds to the trust bank. It makes a deposit into the trust bank. It shows them that you are being transparent. But also, it shows them that it's okay to risk and to try and fail and then try again. And if that's not music, I don't know what is. To model for them that it's okay to screw up as long as you're really trying. Man, that's a really great lesson for musicians to learn. And then the other big thing, and this is one that came straight from Dan Barra. It's like I knew it, but I didn't actually do it. Move quickly. Move quickly and at a brisk pace in rehearsal. And that's true for band, choir, for orchestra, for drama, whatever. Moving quickly has solved more classroom management issues for me than anything else. Because they get that mental fatigue. You do the same thing over and over, or there's kind of that dead period where they're waiting, but then, okay, it's obvious we're going to be sitting for a while, so they just check out. The best thing you can do is move quickly. And if that means changing up something small, cool. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. But a brisk rehearsal pace is one of the biggest things that will help you maintain control over what's happening in your classroom. All right, so that's the zoomed out stuff. Let's get into what I do and what I have found to be the case. Warm-ups. This may be duh. Start every rehearsal with warm-ups. Several. Again, at least for me. I spend at least a third of every class period, every day, with every group on warm-ups and vocalizing. Why? Well, one, yes, to warm them up, but as they go during the day, they talk a lot. They're usually warm by then. But something, again, I learned from Dan Barra. Warm-ups are where you teach your choral aesthetic. Warm-ups are when we teach them how to sing. Not everybody abides by that philosophy. Dr. Stanley Roberts at Mercer, a choral giant in this area, he does a couple of warm-ups and then uses the repertoire to teach exactly the kind of sound that he wants. And that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. For me, I found what works is using warm-ups to teach the basics of choral sound and then apply that to the rep a little bit later on. What warm-ups do I like to do and what works? I like to use lip trills a lot. Some people call it bubbling. For brass players, I know it can be difficult because it's almost the opposite. But anytime, you can do stuff like that. It really makes things a lot better because it forces the breath to work well. A lip trill can't be done if the breath is not supported. And a lot of times when people they have trouble sustaining it, usually that's a breath issue. So usually what I'll do is use a 5-note pattern up and down just to start rehearsals. And it can be one lip trill. Or you can do 3 of them at a time for a little bit more energy. Et cetera, et cetera. One thing that's also fun is if you really want to stretch them a little bit, start with one, and then each time, like after you do that a couple of times, add another one. Then go to 3. And then just add one and see who can make it and see who doesn't. And it's fine, but it becomes a little bit of a game in rehearsal, but it's focused on something that is musical. It's fun, but it's serving a purpose. Another one that I got from Dr. Barra, and I need to run and grab my baton real quick because I didn't think to do it until just now. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm coming. I'm coming. And he's back. Okay. So one thing that Dr. Barra does, and he did this when he conducted Allstate several years ago, and I love this because it's a great way to focus people and to get them involved in what you're doing in a subtle way. What he would do is say, give us a great big loud shh, or just some kind of big consonant with every beat that you see. So I'm going to do the sound as though I was the singer, but you, the conductor, would not do this. All right, so like this. Shh, 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 shh. And you change it up. Now with an F. Be like, nope, that's not enough. Need more. Benefits to that, engages this, and teaches them how much consonant they really need. Then what he would do is say, give us a great big loud one on every downbeat that you see. All right, so it'd be like one, 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 one. Then he'd say, fill in the other numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then he'd, do a ritardando, he would celerando, he'd just do all kinds of crazy stuff and force them to stay with him. And what that does is a different kind of concentration, a different kind of focus that kind of points everybody inward and gets them on the same page. And I found, especially like with a guys group, that can be very, very, very effective. In general, warm-ups, when you're doing warm-ups, start with something that's individual. Over the course of warm-ups, we start with the big, loud, individual sound. And then over the course, as we get towards the end, it goes from my sound to our sound, from I to we. And so lip trill is a good way to get everything going. And then, do something that encourages openness and breadth of sound. For instance, one that I use a lot is so you got good vowels and good consonant. Et cetera, et cetera. One I got from Joseph Golden at Columbus State was si, so, sa, sa, sa. And if you do it right, you'll be totally out of breath when it's all said and done. You move up, down. In general, avoid the extremes of the ranges, or at least don't live there. If you're not, there are a lot of people that get choral jobs and they're band folks or piano folks, and I mean, you have to pay the bills. You got to take the job you can get. But if you're not a singer at heart, then you may not really know what those ranges are. Live in the middle of the voice and spend 90% of your time in warm-ups in that. And just briefly touch the extremes. Briefly touch the extremes. Don't live there. But I mean, it's not uncommon for my freshmen to at least attempt a high C by 8:15, 8:30 in the morning. We're just going to do it once. We're not going to live there. We're not going to address it, but it at least wakes everything up. And then as things are moving, as we get towards the end of rehearsal, or the end of warm-ups rather, there are more that I do that are a little bit more focused on our choral sound versus the individual sound. And then what I always do, especially with the more advanced ensembles, I end the warm-ups with a sustained note or a chord, like an oo vowel for like a women's choir. And we'll adjust and change and modify that to land on our sound. What is our group sound that we try to achieve every day? And then you can do chord stuff with that. You can do dissonant stuff. You can go from there into solfege. There's so many different things. But that unifies everybody's focus to one moving forward. The most significant thing about my teaching philosophy that I learned from Dr. Vera that has defined my career is tone. Tone is everything. There's a reason it's the first thing, the first category on the LGPE judge sheet. There's a reason, because it is the most important. Tone, 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 tone. Tone is the most important because no matter what, you can do the rest, every pitch and rhythm can be right. They can have perfect blend. Musicality and expression can just be unbelievable. But if the tone's bad, no one's going to care because it sounds bad and it's impossible to really hear past that. So a few things that I learned about tone. Joy Dumas at Perry High, love her dearly. Tone covers a multitude of sins. If a group sounds good, they'll be forgiven for a lot of things. But also the opposite is true. Tone can be a real battle to fight. It can be a real battle. And if you're not a trained natural singer, then that can be even scarier. But y'all, it is a battle that's worth fighting. The biggest retention thing that I can ever imagine, that what I've seen in my world, in my corner of the world, what hooks kids on choir more than anything else is sounding good. That being successful. All the bells and whistles and tricks and performances and all that stuff, great. But you know what gets them here and hooks them? Sounding good. So how do we build tone? Well, that's a big, big topic, but here are a few things that I found. One, it's about a balance between space and place. Spaciousness inside the mouth. Tall space, one way to do that. You find a little nubbin of your ear right here. Take your index finger and just feel right in front of it, and then drop your jaw down. You'll feel a space open up. That is the hinge. That's where your jaw connects to your skull. And if you just bop that up and down a couple of times, you'll feel that space open and close. In general, as a general rule, we want that space open as much as we can. If you take in a big yawn, you'll also feel that space open up. Same sort of idea. So that's one element of the space stuff. And then place is where we want to focus the sound. This is another one I got from Dr. Barrett. So somewhere around the middle of the voice, right? Let's say, yeah, I'll do this in E flat, starting on B flat. Silly little song that works really well. I'll do it one time, and then the singers would do it. They would copy me. For our sake, I'll just do it both times. Listen to this. The tone is in the well. The tone is in the well. Hi ho Fidelio, the tone is in the well. So the well, the back of the throat, almost swallowed. The tone is in the nose. The tone is in the nose. You got to make it gross. Hi ho Fidelio, the tone is in the nose. So we've got the extremes, the front and the back. This is the winner. The tone is in the bell. The tone is in the bell. Hi ho Fidelio, the tone is in the bell. I have yet to find one that works better than that in terms of feeling the difference of the well, the nose, and then the bell, because that's where the resonance is. That's the place, in addition to the space. And that's without those two things, tone can't really be successful. I also there's one that I use especially with treble groups. that also came from Dr. Barra. Told you I was going to reference him a lot. So it's just a arpeggiated pattern, but you just sing. And man, when that ooh vowel starts to resonate, you'll see their eyes just light up and go, oh my God, I didn't know I could make that sound. And then they want more. They want more. And that's when rehearsal really starts to get exciting. So, in summary of that portion, warm-ups, for me, live there. Spend plenty of time focusing on technique, on breathing, on tone more than anything else. Because by that point, no matter what you put in front of them, sight reading, rep, random stuff, at least it'll sound good when that muscle memory kicks in. So, and then one more thing with that. This applies more for middle and definitely high school. We want unanimity, not anonymity. The choir shouldn't be a place where we go to hide, but rather to add your own individual sound so that everyone else gets to experience it. A lot of people like to just kind of, really soft and just barely make much sound at all because that's safe. But it's not, if there's no risk, there's no reward. So encourage them to take the risk. Yes, they may be too loud. That's okay. Let the conductor worry about that. Singer, you just sing. Take the critique that we give you, because none of it's personal, and just sing. If it feels really good and healthy, guess what? It's going to sound really good and healthy. So then we finish up warm-ups. We do a great big giant chord or a really tender note, something like that, and we're ready to dive in to the rep. Some things that I found that work for rep. Once again, work very quickly, but without being frantic. And depending on where you are in terms of your listening journey, as soon as you hear a problem, go ahead and correct it. So if there's a note that's decently unconfident, or there's a vowel that's just, oh no, that's not even close to right, cut them off. Let's fix it immediately, because it doesn't give them time to get bored. When you're looking at a piece of music, all of us have done rehearsals on the fly. As a public school teacher, you have to wing it sometimes because life happens. But as best you can, study the score ahead of time and at least know what you want to do that day and have obvious starting places. There's nothing that wastes more time than looking at a piece and they're running through it, they're doing their thing, and then you cut them off and there's just the dead time of, okay, well, where do we want to start? Where do we want to start? Where do we want to? You've lost them. They're gone. So before you stop them, know what you're going to do next. If that means they just keep on going, okay, that's fine. Let them keep on going. It's not going to hurt them. But don't stop them until you know what we're going to go back and fix. This goes back to Robert Shaw. There are three main elements that come with choral music: pitch, rhythm, and text. Those are the big three. When you're introducing a piece, only do two of them at a time, at the most. Most of the time, pitch and rhythm. Don't try to do all three at once. Don't, especially on like the first time they're trying to get it. Just do pitch and rhythm. Or just do rhythm and text. Have them speak the text in rhythm, and then worry about adding in pitch. Or if you want to do solfege in rhythm. But trying to do all three at once is a recipe that rarely ends well unless they're an excellent reading group. If they are, push them, great. But for starting off sixth graders, maybe not the best thing. As you can tell, I like to talk. Guilty. Many of us do. But we spend so much time talking when just demonstrating would make such a difference. Um, you don't have to explain necessarily how to achieve a great tone or how to do a certain consonant by using the lips and the tongue in this manner. Just show them. Hey, y'all, right now we're getting, what we need is model it, demonstrate it, show them with your voice what sound we're going for. And then it's just, oh, okay, well, I can do that. Start talking a lot, well, you've lost me. But hearing it, okay, yeah, I can do that, no problem. Um, and with that, one thing I found to be true, choirs tend to sound like their conductor's singing voice. In general, especially in the public school, choirs tend to end up sounding like their conductor's singing voice. So keep track of what yours is doing. If you don't have a great sense of how to make a certain sound, find a model, a video, something to model for them the right way to do it. Also, you can ask others, like, hey, is this the right way to do this? And then demonstrate it, and they'll tell you yes or no. You don't have to live in a bubble, but you definitely want to have something resembling an idea of what your singing voice is doing, because odds are your kids are going to replicate that. So don't explain, demonstrate. Also, whenever you do decide to stop, okay, we're going, all right, we've heard some stuff we need to fix. Don't tell them to do this, and this on the next rep. In college, we can get away with that because we're relatively successful musicians. We're making music at a high level. Okay, so basses need to worry about this, and this. Sopranos, make sure you have enough height on X. Not with kids. Not with kids. One or two things, max. And then immediately jump in and do it. And hold them accountable. Hold them accountable if they don't do it. And that's a hard battle to fight. It's hard, y'all, because you start feeling that tension and that resistance a little bit. But I don't want to, like, okay, I'll try it with like half effort, but you're going to think that I'm trying. Well, that, we didn't really do it, but I just want to move on. Come on, Mr. Williams. No, that wasn't right. We said an ooh vowel. You saying, oh, love you, mean it. Sorry, do it right. Not the right vowel. Do it again. Closer. Do it again. Almost there. Now make it perfect. Be relentless. Lovingly relentless, but relentless. They will meet whatever bar you set. Whatever that bar is, they will meet it. If you lower it, that's the best they'll do. But if it's up here, you give them the tools and you don't let up, eventually they will meet that bar. Last thing on the repertoire stuff. Remember, they only get better when they're singing, not when we're talking. And y'all, I know I'm preaching to the choir, directors, literally. Kristen Miller came up with that one. I have to give him credit. Y'all know I love to talk, but the kids only get better when they're singing. We can explain all these great metaphors and everything, and they may be absolutely tuned in, but they're not getting better unless they're singing. And classroom management stuff is solved mostly by keeping them singing. It's like in the band world, folks often say, it's hard to talk when you have a horn in your face. Well, it's hard to talk when you're singing. So keep them singing as often as possible. Speaking of band folks, and I meant to mention this earlier, y'all, band directors are our friends. And we are working towards the same goal and we're on the same journey. Encourage them. Encourage kids to participate in band. Anytime you have singers that are also players, everybody wins. The tide raises all ships. If it's not possible for them to do both, Try to work out a compromise where it's like 2 days a week in one, 3 days with the other, and then flip flop. Almost any time you try to tell a kid, look, you're just going to have to choose between band and chorus, they're going to go for the one that didn't make them choose. We often lose them when we do that. So I've learned, I would venture to say, as I've been teaching, I've learned more from band people than I have from choir people. Because they have a lot of wisdom and knowledge. So I encourage you to use the resource that's there. Okay, so let's say we are in the first few years of teaching, and we're in front of a group. It can be an elementary group, it can be middle school, it can be a church choir, whatever. And it's time to have them do something, and they do it, and we get this wall of sound, this wall of oral information, and it's like I don't even know what to do with this. I don't even know where do I start? What do I do now? So very often we say, well, just do it again. And we try to listen to something to fix. There's a difference between hearing and listening. And let me just give you some encouragement. That will get better. With time and experience, you will learn how to decode that wall of info. I promise you will. It gets easier. But to help you along the way, here are some things that can help. Active listening. Don't just listen to that wall and try to find the thing that sounds the most wrong. Listen for specific things. So we're going to do these few measures again, and the dynamics may be trash, and they may not even be able to speak English. I'm just listening for notes and rhythms. That's it. Ignore everything else, Williams. Ignore it. Just notes and rhythms. Did they get it? Were they really confident, or did they just get lucky? Well, let's be sure. Have them hold a specific note and hold it as soon as they land on it. Lots of different things you can do with that. And then make them hold a specific vowel or listen for a specific sound. Are they doing this articulation right? Don't try to decode everything. If we're not ready for that yet, we're not ready for it. You'll get there, I promise. Listen for specific things. Something else. And Tom Brown taught me this, and it's a brutal exercise, but oh man, it makes you better. Record the class, and then listen to them when you're not in the heat of the moment. I can't tell you how many times I've recorded my group thinking they sounded halfway decent, then went home, chilled a little bit, and then played that recording again and like, oh my God, they are just trash. That is not at all what I heard in the moment. But the recording doesn't lie. And if you listen to that recording at home and then listen to a really good recording and then listen to that recording again, you'll pick up on things like, oh yeah, this part was bad. This wasn't right. This wasn't right. All of a sudden, you've got specific things to fix the next day. And that's huge. Coming in, knowing, yep, we need to do this, and this. Now you're on the way to having a really successful group that knows they're getting better. A purchase that I cannot recommend highly enough is this right here. This is called a Zoom H4n. Once again, that is a Zoom H4n. They have a newer model of this out. I don't know that it's really any better than this one, but this costs about $200. And yes, that is pricey, but you'll only need it once. You only have to purchase it once. This is just about the best ensemble recording device you can find. Nestor Hines, who's over at Russell Elementary. Thank you, Dr. Flory, for putting that link up there. Nestor is a genius when it comes to technology stuff, recording technology. He's done our virtual choirs all of last year. He's a genius. Ask him tech questions because he knows more than me. But I have found that this little number right here will give you as close to a pro recording as anything you'll get. Band people, when they put it on the podium and record, take that thing home, make yourself a drink because it's going to be brutal, and then listen to it. It's not going to lie to you. This particular one also comes with a windscreen that goes over the microphones right here. So if you're doing an outdoors performance, then you can get a recording of that. Also, it has two microphone inputs. It's kind of dark in here. I'm not sure if you can see those. You got two microphone inputs here. So you can record 3 different sources at once. And it'll merge everything together into one track. So this would be a great purchase, especially if you want to record your class and then turn right around and play that recording for them. That's another really, really important thing to do, in my opinion. Have kids hear themselves. That's big because we don't know what we sound like, right? We only hear 75% of the finished product in our own head. That's why if you don't like listening to yourself on a recording, because you always sound more nasal than you think you do, it's because your sound hasn't hit the sinus cavity, the lips, teeth, tongue, all of that stuff when it hits your inner ear. That's why we have to get others to listen. Along with that, the National Band Association, the NBA, one of their tenets is to, one of their big kind of collective commitments they have is to help younger directors grow and achieve. And one of the ways they do that is actively seeking out recordings of other people and what they're doing. Y'all, I cannot recommend this highly enough. Record and then send it to someone and ask them, please pick this apart. Tell me what you're hearing. How would you fix it? Y'all, there's enough music to go around. They will help you. They won't say, all right, you just got to figure it out. Well, I'm hearing this, hearing that. I'd recommend doing this. Work smart, not hard. You don't have to figure it all out on your own. I'm very grateful that I didn't. Please don't take that burden on yourself. Folks that you can send it to, go to the GMEA website or in Opus and look at the LGPE adjudicators list. They're used to hearing and critiquing and giving thoughts on how to make things better. It's what they do. Please reach out to them and ask them to critique. You can go from year 1 to year 5 in terms of listening experience and knowledge of what to do by leaning on those resources. Active listening is huge. Yeah, Dr. Flory, thank you for putting your email on there. And I've got my email, if you can see it on the board back here. Send us stuff. We're more than happy to lend what little expertise we all have. But the thing is, when it's collectively done, you start to get somewhere. There are tips and tricks that can go all over the place. I mean, we could talk for hours and days and weeks and not cover even a tenth of what it means to run a rehearsal the right way. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is trial and error. But these are the things that have worked for me. The big kind of narrowing it down and finishing it up. For me, tone and vowels and tone. It's all connected, but tone and proper vowels, if you get those 2 things down and really live on those, the other stuff comes a lot easier. Fast-paced rehearsals that take the repertoire in bite-sized chunks that can get better quickly. Improvement is contagious. It breeds enthusiasm, and that's contagious. They get better, they sound better, they feel better, they want to do that more. Do less and do it really well rather than do a whole piece in a class period and it stays about the same. So tone and vowels, leaning on experts, making sure that you are transparent, be the youest you that you can possibly be while keeping it professional. And remember that everyone around you is doing the best they know how to do. Help them and let them help you. Pride doesn't really get us anywhere, but really, truly working for the betterment of our students and not for our own selves, but for their sake, it's hard to go wrong with that, at least in my little corner of the world. So I asked y'all to think about or jot down some of your rehearsal vexations, the things that you wanted, that you would like to get better at, or would love to get some feedback on. Y'all, I'd love to hear what y'all have to say. What are the things that you struggle with? What are the things that you disagree entirely with what I said? What can we as a collective help you with or give you some insight on? If you want to put it in the chat, feel free. If you want to, unmute and put a video on, I'd like to take, 15 minutes or so and just kind of troubleshoot. So what have you got? What can we help you with? Well, surely there's something besides accompaniment. I don't really have a lot of expertise when it comes to piano playing, other than just try to do less and do it well. Just focus on playing one part and then don't play it over and over, because they can start to depend on it. But it forces their ears to get better if they have to do it a cappella. That's really all I got on that. What other things would y'all like to bounce back and forth?
I'm sorry, I'm Jeremy. About the accompaniment issue, are there any like rehearsal tracks or, like sometimes we use things like smart music in the band world to provide accompaniment for our students? Do you find that those are useful? And if so, what do you use?
So it really depends. Smart music isn't very chorally accessible. It's getting there, but it's not there yet. A couple of years ago, I would have said the Matthew Curtis choral tracks stuff, it is absolutely incredible. And if you want to do a few specific songs, those are a great resource. But to do like the full library of stuff is over $1,000 a year, and that's just not feasible for the vast majority of people. So I find that YouTube can be helpful for practice tracks, but practice tracks can also be a crutch. They really can. It doesn't demand anything of us. And there's nothing wrong with using them if you have no choice. But even if you're just playing one part at a time, even if you can only play the left hand or just play one note of each measure, that in my world is better than leaning on something that's electronic. Because when you lean on the electronic, folks stay where they are. You don't get better using a track. You just stay put, in my experience.
Thank you.
What else y'all got?
Okay, I'll share again. For me, it would be building the ear to know exactly what I am looking for while I'm in the rehearsal, fixing stuff right there on the spot.
Mm-hmm. That wall of oral information and trying to decode it. Am I hearing that right?
Yes.
Cool. Oh God. I remember those days. I remember those days and feeling absolutely helpless and like I was not meant to be in this job. Surely if I was, then I'd be able to figure this out. I feel you, and I promise it gets better. A couple of things, kind of like what I said before, active listening, choosing ahead of time, okay, on this rep, I'm going to listen for this one issue in particular. The altos in these measures, vowels, just vowels, or just pitches, or articulation, whatever the case may be. Another thing is, like I said, the recording and listening to it when you're not in the adrenaline fueled moment. That plays a big, big part. I can't recommend that part highly enough. Um, if you can find a professional recording of the piece that you're working on, do that, then play yours, and then play that one again. And you'll hear the stuff that it won't occur to you in the moment of rehearsal, but you're a good enough musician. You'll be able to hear things that stand out. Also, use the LGPE judge sheet. That, I mean, there's so many little micro categories on there that can kind of help direct your brain on, okay, I can listen for this, I can listen for that, listen for that. You can also have half of the group sing, like, or just like one section, for instance, while the other half is listening, and then ask them, okay, what stood out about that to you? If you could fix one thing, what would it be? And it's not so much doing, they're not doing your job for you. You're teaching them how to listen and how to listen like you. Another thing too, keep singing in choirs. So often we get into the bubble of teaching and we forget over time what it's like to be on the other side of the podium. And anytime you can get back in a choir, your teaching ear is going to get better. You're going to hear things that you wouldn't hear otherwise. And like Dr. Flory just said in the chat, play and sing through each part prior to rehearsal. Score study is something that is very important, but it's not always doable. It's easy if you have one or two groups, and that's your primary responsibility is one or two, and so you only have a few pieces that you're trying to prep. If you have 4 or 5 different groups and you have 20 pieces in your folder, you can't always prep every one, but you can at least prep one. Choose one piece that you're working on, just one, and play through every part. Sing through every part and write and circle in your score where you screw up, because odds are that's where they're going to screw up too, and you can get out in front of it. As you sing through it, when you feel your own range start to kind of, get a little bit squirrely, or you need to change a vowel, mark that. Anytime you can know a score backwards and forwards before you get in front of the kids, it makes a world of difference. You feel better and more confident, because what's going to stand out to you is the stuff you know is wrong, because you already know the piece. It's not always feasible to do it for everything, but as much as you can, do it. And keep in mind, as you go through your career and you redo pieces, you'll be able to call back to your prior knowledge. It won't take up as much mental energy down the road. So appreciate that question. What else do y'all have? What other things or if anybody else wants to chime in about that listening issue, by all means, please. You can put it in the chat. Feel free. It doesn't have to be oral. We can read it just as well. We've got a couple minutes and we want to use it to the best of our ability. So we'll say going once.
Did we have any elementary choral specific questions? Some of our elementary people sometimes get into these things and they're thinking that we're thinking on a high school level, elementary or middle like ideas. No?
Okay, that's another one for me. Sorry. I'm an instrumentalist, but I do sing in choir a little.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my thing is with how do I know how to develop those young voices? I know most of their parts are in unison, but like, do you still do like the five note warm up with the kids? Would I still do the lip slurs with the kids? but just take it up an octave maybe instead of in a range of my voice specifically.
Great question and super applicable. And Nestor, I see you asking about that stuff, and Sam, your the changing male voice, all of that stuff. Great points. So I have a little bit of middle school experience, like a year and a half, and that was at the beginning of my career. So I won't pretend to be an expert. And I haven't done elementary, but here are a few things I do know. Healthy singing is healthy singing. Okay. Breath support is breath support. Um, it's and Dr. Flory just put an article or a book on the chat that you should check out. So at the elementary and the middle school level, before the voice changes, it's primarily up in the head voice. To discover head voice, I found that hooting like an owl, just going, "Boo, boo, boo," that's a great way to get them started. And to get that space opening up and getting that resonance going, that kind of singing, you if it's supported, you can sing like that all day and you're not going to wear anything out. Now, keep in mind, I don't have a vocal pedagogy degree, so I could say some things that are not truly physically 100% correct. It's just what I have found works in my world. So that little caveat. But rounded sound that is tall and up in the head, it's going to be breathy and it's going to be unstable, but that is fine. That's really okay. Because it's healthy. The biggest thing is just to keep them singing. If it sounds pushed and pressed and strained, it's probably strained and pushed and pressed. If it sounds airy or breathy and it sounds light, that's probably relatively healthy. Lip trills, absolutely. Yes. Now, the silliness of that may make a difference for them. You know, there may be some management things, and they're going to spit a little bit if they're not used to lip trilling. That's totally okay. One thing you can do is have them basically make a mask with their hands and have it in front of them, something like that. I found that especially for treble voices, which elementary, almost universally are, if you start around E or S and basically live inside the treble clef, not doing too much right at the top. Most kids of most ages will be able to sing that, and that's a good place to start. Now, when the male voice starts to change, the big thing is to keep them singing wherever they can. Music that is like in the middle school level, 3-part mixed, that lets those changed voices really choose any of those lines that they can hit. And it's tough, especially female teachers that have to try to teach changing male voices. I feel for you because you can't model it the same way. Go on YouTube and look up recordings and videos of people who are good singers, and really you can trust your ear. What sounds like a warm, healthy sound, use that. Or just, look up videos changing male voice singing and see what you can find. Some of it's going to be garbage, but you know more than you think you do about what it's going to sound like. A resource, someone who knows so much about the changing voice, especially working with trans people who are like trans men who are taking hormones and are experiencing voice change, like in their 20s and 30s. Dr. David Langley at Georgia Southern. He is an invaluable resource when it comes to working with changing or changed voices. I'd highly recommend reaching out to him. If the falsetto can be accessed, access that just to make sure it doesn't go away. But find what notes they can sing and let them live in that area, knowing it's going to change day to day. That's cool. If they need to take something down the octave, let them. but encourage them to explore the range each day just to see what it's doing. And then, oh, there was another thing I had, and it just left my brain. I'm sure it'll come back at 2:30 in the morning when I'm fast asleep. Big thing is to keep them singing, no matter what, and then reach out to others who are infinitely more educated on that topic than I am, and encourage them. The voice is going to crack. It's going to crack. Let that be okay. So, let me see. Let's see, Kenneth. If there are middle school boys with changing voices, the vocal talent. Yes, yes. What I tell my folks is singing quietly is like trying to get really ripped to get great muscles by lifting a water bottle over and over. You're not going to you're not going to get anywhere with that. You've got to really put air through the instrument. You got to put air through the horn. One way I found to do that is to sigh as they sing. For instance, let's say we're like with a middle school dude who can maybe get middle C to F. Yeah, 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 yeah. Sigh through the whole thing. Another way to think of it, if you had a mirror that was a couple feet in front of you and you tried to fog that up, how much breath would that take? That's how much breath it takes when you start to sing. And they're going to be loud and like, oh God, and then pull it immediately back. Oh, celebrate the loudness and encourage them to do it more. It's not a quick thing that happens immediately, but it gets better over time. It's a long game. It's a long game, but it's very much worth playing. Others of y'all that have thoughts on this topic or questions or tips that have worked for you, by all means. I don't pretend to know half of any of it. So what do you got? And that's a really good one. Thank you for that. Tiffany, as I'm thinking about it, it's very good that you recognize your own limitations there. Singing in choirs, I don't know if you sing alto or soprano. Any experience you can get in the soprano world, living in where the treble clef is, that would be really invaluable for you as a singer to know what it feels like. Children's choirs, especially European ones, are not necessarily especially British ones. They can have a really nice sound, but it can also be a little bit pinched and a little bit strained. I'd look up the Spivey Hall Children's Choir, based out of Atlanta. That's a great one to use as kind of a demonstration or a starting point. Dr. Martha Shaw, who works at Reinhardt, she's been in charge of that group for Lord, 30 years now. And they've sung at National ACDA. She would be a really good one to reach out to as far as pedagogy for those younger, much younger voices. If they're singing up here, up in that head area, they're not going to injure themselves. They're just not going to. You'll hear when it gets strained. Discourage that. Just ringy, light. Don't think rocket ship. Think a hot air balloon or just a balloon that's floating upward. That's what's worked for me. Others, we'll give it just another minute and then we'll sign off here. What else can we help you with? Going once. Twice. Angel voices, absolutely. Like Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire, when we get the lemon meringue pie, it says, "Hoo-hoo!" That's where we want to aim. Kenneth, I love that. Voice cracks are leveling up. Absolutely. Oh, I'm stealing that. That's fantastic. I really like that. Another one is apparently there was a TikTok of a woman like pounding on a bus, just going, and then the kids just went nuts about that. That's actually actually perfect kind of head voice stuff. That's a great one if they have seen it. That's one that you can reference to actually make the right kind of sound. Hooting like an owl, that sort of deal. In regards to men's voices, Dr. Barra said there are basically three ways of doing that. You've got the low stuff where they say, holy, holy. And then you've got the upper stuff, which is, Dad, can I have the keys to the car? And that's kind of the tenor area. It's a little bit breathier, but it's very well supported and opened, and it's energized. So you're not gonna really push that. And then you've got the falsetto stuff up there. Last thing, and then I'll let y'all go. People that can't match pitch or that aren't aware that they can match pitch, what do? Well, you meet them where they are. How do you meet them where they are? Find out where they speak. Have them say their first and last name 5 to 10 times back to back in a row. So, Jeremy Williams, 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 Jeremy Williams. That's about where I'm speaking. That's about a C sharp right there. And then just have them sing that note on D or Do or Da. Da, da, da. Da, da, da. Da, da, da. And have them move from there. Find where they are and then get them used to moving from that. That is what has worked for me. Also, I found that folks that have some sort of either a speech impediment, which is usually related to some sort of hearing difficulty, also have trouble matching pitch. So just know, and again, that's not universally true. It's just what I have seen the tendency in my 10 years here that those things can be related. I'm sure there's research somewhere into that. Dr. Holmes-Davis, I'm sure there have been some research projects on or dissertations or studies on a link between speech impediments and pitch difficulty and stuff like that, but I haven't taken the time to look those up, but I'm sure they exist.
They do.
We'll see if we can't find what some of those studies have to say. Well, I have yammered on for a while. Any last minute things that y'all would like to contribute, resources you found that have worked, or anecdotes you think that would be helpful for us before we get out of here? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Well, I'm grateful to have had this opportunity. I've never done a presentation like this before. This is the first one in my entire career. Probably going to be the last one. People aren't going to want me back, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and my contact info is on the board right there. My office phone is 478-210-8223. My email address is jeremy.williams@hcbe.net. Please reach out. You are not alone. You are not alone, and you don't have to do this by yourself. We are in this thing together. Whenever I say that to the kids, they start singing High School Musical. But we really are all in this thing together. So reach out, use the resources that are there. We just want to help. So I'm grateful to you. Thank you so very much.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Jeremy, for presenting. And based on what I've seen, I don't think that this will be your last. And I think that Nestor published a very nice, Facebook message regarding our presentation or your presentation. But thank you for everybody. We will work on getting this recording posted on the Georgia College Department of Music website. And for each of you who are here, I will send you a certificate of completion that you can use for your TKES portfolio or for your certificate renewal or whatever, or both, or whatever you need it for. And if you need to reach Jeremy and you didn't get his contact information, please reach me and I will put you in contact. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you all, everybody. Have a good weekend.